The morning sunlight filtered through my bedroom curtains, casting gentle shadows across the photographs on my dresser. There was one particular photo that always caught my eye, a snapshot from happier times when I believed in forever. Looking at it now, 3 months after everything fell apart, I can hardly recognize the woman smiling back at me. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my ex-husband used his stepchildren as pawns in a twisted game of control, and how we all found our way back to the light. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning in early September. I was preparing breakfast for my 6-year-old daughter, Emma, when I heard a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw my ex-husband Marcus standing there, his face streaked with tears, clutching a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. It was one of Emma's drawings, a colourful butterfly she had made months ago. He held it like it was some sacred artifact, as if it could somehow undo everything he had done to us. 3 months earlier, Marcus had orchestrated something so cruel, so calculating, that even now I struggle to comprehend how the man I once loved could have transformed into such a monster. He had encouraged his stepchildren to call me Mum whenever I watched them, not out of affection, but as part of an elaborate scheme. When I discovered his true intentions and cut off contact, he retaliated by having someone impersonate a Child Protective Services officer and falsely report me for child hoarding. When I confronted him about it, he simply laughed and said those words that still echo in my nightmares. "Guess you should have been nicer to me." But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how we reached that devastating moment, I need to go back to the beginning, to when Marcus and I first met and fell in love. It was 8 years ago at a charity fundraiser in downtown Denver. I was working as a marketing manager for a non-profit organization, and Marcus was there as a volunteer. He had this infectious smile and a way of making everyone around him feel special. We talked for hours that night about our dreams, our favorite books, our shared love of hiking in the Rocky Mountains. Our courtship was like something out of a fairy tale. Marcus would surprise me with handwritten notes tucked into my lunch bag, plan elaborate picnics in the park, and stay up all night talking with me about everything and nothing. When he proposed after 18 months of dating on a mountaintop overlooking the city at sunset, I didn't hesitate to say yes. I thought I had found my soulmate, my partner for life. The wedding was beautiful, held in a small chapel surrounded by aspens turning gold in the autumn light. My parents flew in from Ohio, his family came from Texas, and we were surrounded by friends who celebrated our love. Emma was born exactly 1 year later on our first anniversary. Marcus cried when he held her for the first time, promising to be the best father in the world. Those early days of parenthood were challenging but filled with joy. I remember the late-night feedings, the first smiles, the milestone moments that made the exhaustion worthwhile. Marcus seemed engaged and excited about being a dad. He would rush home from his job at the accounting firm to spend time with Emma, singing her lullabies and reading her stories. But something shifted when Emma was about 6 months old. I received a promotion at work, a significant one that came with a substantial raise and more responsibilities. Suddenly, I was earning more than Marcus, and though I didn't think much of it at the time, looking back, I can see that's when the cracks in our marriage began to show. Marcus suggested that since I was earning more, it made financial sense for him to become a stay-at-home father. The idea, the reality, dirty, he had every when I suggest, I was as I wanted for we, I rushed, we agreed within his new. Suddenly, Marcus started cancelling his scheduled visits with increasing frequency, always with excuses about Tyler's baseball games or Sophia's dance recitals. He would promise Emma he would see her next time, but next time rarely came. I watched my daughter's heart break a little more with each broken promise, each time she sat at the window waiting for a father who wouldn't show up. Emma had always been a somewhat solitary child, perhaps taking after me in that regard. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in Lakewood, mostly populated by older couples whose children had long since grown and moved away. The lack of kids her age nearby meant she spent a lot of time alone, creating elaborate games with her stuffed animals and drawing pictures that covered every inch of our refrigerator. When Halloween approached that year, Emma's isolation became more apparent. She watched enviously as kids at school talked about their trick-or-treating plans, the groups they would go with, the neighborhoods they would visit. When she asked me who she could go with, my heart ached. I had already taken the evening off work, but I knew she wanted more than just her mum as a companion. That's when I made the phone call that would change everything. I still remember standing in my kitchen, Emma's hopeful eyes watching me as I dialed Marcus's number. I swallowed my pride and asked if Tyler and Sophia could come trick-or-treating with Emma. After all, they were technically her step-siblings, and they were close in age. Maybe this could be a way for Emma to build some connections. Marcus's response surprised me. His voice took on an almost eager quality as he said, "Yes, of course they can. How many nights do you want them? 1, 2, 3? I was taken aback by his enthusiasm, but chalked it up to him finally trying to do something nice for Emma. We agreed on just Halloween night. When he dropped Tyler and Sophia off that evening, it was the first time I had seen Marcus in months. He stayed in his car, not even walking them to the door, and drove away the moment they reached our porch. I had decided not to tell Emma that her father was the one who brought them, not wanting to complicate her emotions on what should be a fun night. Tyler and Sophia were delightful children. Tyler, dressed as a superhero, was energetic but polite, and Sophia, in a princess costume that had seen better days, was sweet and a little shy. Emma transformed before my eyes, going from uncertain to excited as she showed them her fairy costume and the Halloween decorations we had put up together. The night was magical in its simplicity. The 3 children walked through our neighborhood, their plastic pumpkin buckets slowly filling with candy. Emma held Sophia's hand, pointing out the best houses and warning her about the one with the scary skeleton that moved when you walked past. Tyler made them all laugh with his superhero poses at each door. When we got home, they dumped their candy collections on the living room floor, creating colorful piles of treats. They traded with the seriousness of stockbrokers, Emma giving up her peanut butter cups for Sophia's lollipops, Tyler negotiating hard for everyone's chocolate bars. There wasn't a single argument, just laughter and the rustle of candy wrappers. I made them hot chocolate and popcorn, and we watched a not-too-scary Halloween movie together. By the time the credits rolled, all 3 were cuddled together on the couch, Emma in the middle with an arm around each of her step-siblings. It was the happiest I had seen her in months. I expected Marcus to pick them up that night or first thing in the morning, but he didn't come. He didn't call or text either. When bedtime came, I set up sleeping bags in Emma's room, turning it into an impromptu sleepover. The kids were thrilled, whispering and giggling long after lights out. The next morning, I made pancakes shaped like pumpkins, and the 3 children helped, getting flour everywhere but having a wonderful time. Still no word from Marcus. I discovered that Tyler and Sophia attended the same elementary school as Emma, just in different grades. So when Monday came, and Marcus still hadn't contacted me, I simply added them to my morning routine. The principal knew me from Emma's enrollment and didn't question when I showed up with 2 additional children. Made sure they had their backpacks and lunch money, then headed to work, expecting surely Marcus would pick them up after school. But when 3:30 came, I received a call from the school secretary saying all 3 children were waiting for me. That became our routine for the next 3 days. I would pick up all 3 kids, bring them home, help with homework, make dinner, supervise baths, and tuck them into bed. Tyler and Sophia had begun calling me Miss Sarah on the first day, but by the 3rd day, Tyler slipped and called me Mum. He immediately looked stricken, but I just smiled and continued helping him with his math homework. Each afternoon when I picked them up, all 3 children would rush to my car, eager to show me their art projects or tell me about their day. "Look what I made!" they would shout in unison, waving papers covered in paint and glitter. Emma was beaming, finally having the siblings she had always wanted, even if it was temporary. On the 4th night, as I was reading them a bedtime story, my phone finally buzzed. A text from Marcus that simply said, "I'm outside." No explanation, no apology, no thanks for taking care of his stepchildren for the better part of a week. The goodbye was heart-wrenching. Tyler and Sophia clung to me, and I could feel their small bodies trembling. "We don't want to go," Sophia whispered. Can't we stay here? Tyler tried to be brave, but I saw him wipe away tears as they walked to Marcus's car. Emma watched from the window, waving frantically until the car disappeared around the corner. That night, Emma fell asleep clutching a drawing Sophia had made for her, a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. I tucked her in and then sat in my living room, wondering what had just happened. Why had Marcus abandoned his stepchildren for days? Why did they seem so reluctant to leave? My questions were answered the next morning when my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Marcus and he was furious. "What the hell were you thinking being so good to my kids?" he yelled. "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to steal them from me, trying to turn them against me." I was stunned. "Marcus, I was just being kind to children who were left in my care. If you think kindness is stealing, I think that says more about you than me." I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking. I placed my hand on my chest, trying to calm my racing heart. I told myself that Marcus was out of our lives now, that his anger was his problem, not mine. Emma and I would be fine on our own. We didn't need his drama. But 3 days later, my world came crashing down. I was preparing lunch when I heard a sharp knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw a woman in her mid-20s standing on my porch. She had long acrylic nails, heavy makeup, and was dressed in clothes that seemed too casual for a professional visit. She was holding a clipboard and had an impatient expression. When I opened the door, she flashed a badge so quickly I couldn't read it. "Child Protective Services," she announced. "We received an anonymous complaint about unsafe living conditions and child hoarding at this address." My blood ran cold. "I'm sorry, what? There must be some mistake." She pushed past me into my house, her eyes scanning the living room. "Mum, I need to ask you some questions. Did you or did you not provide childcare for 3 children without a proper license?" "I was watching my daughter's step-siblings as a favour," I explained, trying to keep my voice calm. "Their father dropped them off and didn't pick them up for several days." "Did you or did you not allow these children to consume unsafe amounts of candy on Halloween?" Her tone was accusatory, her questions clearly scripted. I stared at her in disbelief. "It was Halloween. All kids eat candy on Halloween." "That's what I thought," she said with a satisfied smirk. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to provide an alternative guardian for your child immediately. If you can't, she'll be placed in foster care." The room seemed to spin. "You can't be serious. This is insane. I want to see your identification again. I want to speak to your supervisor." She held up her badge again, still too quickly to read properly. "You can contest this through the proper channels, but right now I need a name and address for temporary placement." My mind raced. My parents were in Ohio, too far away. Marcus was clearly behind this, so he wasn't an option. "My sister," I said finally. "Maggie Chen. She lives in Aurora." I gave her the address, my voice breaking. "Pack a bag for your daughter. I'll wait." I walked to Emma's room in a daze. She was playing with her dolls, completely unaware that her world was about to shatter. "Sweetheart," I said, kneeling beside her, "you're going to have a sleepover at Aunt Maggie's house." Her face lit up initially, then grew confused. "But it's not the weekend. And why are you crying, Mummy?" I tried to compose myself as I packed her favourite clothes, her special blanket, and Mr. Bunny, her stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a baby. "It's a special sleepover," I managed to say. "I'll come and see you tomorrow, okay?" The woman appeared in the doorway. "We need to go, now." Emma sensed something was wrong. As I walked her to the door, her confusion turned to fear. "Mummy, why can't you come with me? I don't want to go without you." I knelt and hugged her tightly, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, memorizing the feel of her small arms around my neck. "It's just for a little bit, baby, like a special vacation with Aunt Maggie. I promise I'll see you tomorrow." "You promise?" Her lower lip trembled. "I promise. Be good for Aunt Maggie, okay?" I slipped Mr. Bunny into her backpack when the woman wasn't looking, hoping it would bring her comfort. As they walked to the car, Emma kept looking back at me, her expression shifting from confusion to fear. When the woman opened the car door, reality hit Emma all at once. She broke free and ran back toward me, screaming, "Mommy!" at the top of her lungs. I started toward her, but the woman caught her first, lifting my struggling daughter with surprising strength. "This will go in my report," she said coldly, carrying my screaming child to the car. I stood frozen on my porch, tears streaming down my face as the blue sedan pulled away. Emma's pale face appeared in the back window, her small hand pressed against the glass, growing smaller and smaller until the car turned the corner and disappeared. The moment they were gone, I collapsed onto the porch steps, my entire body shaking with sobs. Inside the house, I had been making grilled cheese sandwiches for our lunch, and I could smell them burning, filling the house with smoke. But I couldn't move. All I could see was Emma's terrified face. All I could hear were her screams. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I forced myself to stand. I needed to call Maggie to make sure Emma arrived safely. I needed to find a lawyer. And I needed to figure out exactly what Marcus had done. As I reached for my phone, a terrible thought struck me. What if this wasn't really CPS? What if Marcus had hired someone to impersonate an officer? The woman's appearance had seemed off, her questions strangely specific, her badge flashed too quickly to verify. I called Maggie first. "Sarah, what's going on? Some woman just dropped Emma off. She's hysterical." "Is she okay?" I asked, my voice breaking. "She's crying for you. What happened?" I explained as best I could, then said, "I think Marcus is behind this. I need you to keep her safe while I figure this out." My next call was to the Real Child Protective Services. After being transferred multiple times, I finally reached a supervisor named Patricia Williams. When I explained what had happened, there was a long pause. "Mrs. Chen," she said slowly, "we have no record of any complaint against you. We have no caseworker by the description you've given, and we would never remove a child without proper documentation and procedures." My worst fears were confirmed. Marcus had hired someone to impersonate a CPS worker and kidnap my daughter under the guise of legal authority. I filed a police report immediately, but the officer who took my statement seemed skeptical. Without proof that Marcus was involved, they treated it as a custody dispute rather than a crime. I hired a lawyer that afternoon, draining my savings to pay the retainer. David Martinez was recommended by a friend who had gone through a difficult custody battle. He listened to my story with growing concern. "This is serious," he said. "If your ex-husband orchestrated this, it's criminal, but we need proof. Do you have any documentation of him dropping off the children? Any texts or emails?" I showed him the single text saying, "I'm outside." It wasn't much, but it was something. "We'll file for an emergency custody hearing," David said. "In the meantime, document everything. Any contact from Marcus, any strange incidents, anything unusual?" The next few days were a blur of legal filings, phone calls, and sleepless nights. I was allowed supervised visits with Emma at Maggie's house, but they were limited to 2 hours a day. Emma would cling to me the entire time, begging to come home. Each goodbye was agony. During one visit, Emma said something that made my blood run cold. "Mommy, Tyler and Sophia's mum was really mad at their dad. They had a big fight and she took them away. Is that why I can't come home? Are you mad at me?" I assured her that none of this was her fault, but her words sparked a thought. Jessica, Marcus's wife, had removed her children from the home. Why? What had happened? I managed to find Jessica's contact information through social media. When I called her, she was initially hostile, assuming I was calling to cause trouble, but when I explained what had happened, her tone changed. "Oh my God," she said, "he did the same thing to you." We met at a coffee shop the next day. Jessica looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Tyler and Sophia were with her mother, she explained, and she was in the process of filing for divorce. "It started small," she told me. "Marcus would make comments about how the kids liked you better, how you were trying to replace me. I thought he was just being jealous. Then he started getting angry about how much time they spent at your house during those few days." She paused, stirring her coffee. "The night he picked them up from your place, he interrogated them for hours. What did they call you? What did you feed them? Did they have fun? When Tyler accidentally called you Mum, Marcus lost it. He screamed at them, said they were traitors, that you had brainwashed them. My heart ached for those poor children. I had no idea. They seemed so happy. That's what set him off, Jessica continued. The fact that they were happy with you. He became obsessed with the idea that you were trying to steal our family. He started drinking more, staying out late, becoming paranoid. When I tried to defend you, saying you were just being kind, he accused me of being in on it. She showed me text messages from Marcus, increasingly unhinged rants about me trying to destroy his life, steal his children, turn everyone against him. In one message, he mentioned hiring someone to take care of the problem. That's when I knew I had to get my kids out, Jessica said. I packed up while he was at work and went to my mother's. He's been calling non-stop, but I'm done. My children's safety comes first. I showed the text messages to my lawyer, who immediately filed them as evidence. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, I threw myself into building our case, documenting every interaction, every piece of evidence that showed Marcus's instability. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I stood in Emma's empty room, looking at her drawings on the wall, her stuffed animals arranged on her bed exactly how she liked them. I promised her picture that I would bring her home. The hearing was held on a Thursday morning in downtown Denver. I wore my best suit and arrived early with David. Marcus showed up looking disheveled, accompanied by a lawyer who seemed unprepared. When the judge reviewed the evidence, including Jessica's testimony via affidavit and the text messages showing Marcus's plan to take care of the problem, her expression grew increasingly grave. Mr. Thompson, the judge addressed Marcus, the evidence presented here is deeply concerning. Orchestrating a false CPS removal is not only cruel, but criminal. I'm granting full temporary custody to Mrs. Chen and referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Marcus exploded. He jumped to his feet, screaming that I had ruined his life, that I had turned everyone against him. Court security had to restrain him as he lunged toward me. The judge added a restraining order to her ruling on the spot. That afternoon, I picked up Emma from Maggie's house. When she saw me, she ran into my arms and we both cried. Are we going home, Mummy? For real this time? Yes, baby. For real this time. The ride home was filled with Emma's chatter. She told me about everything she had done at Aunt Maggie's, the books they read, the cookies they baked. But as we pulled into our driveway, she grew quiet. Mummy, she said in a small voice, is Daddy going to take me away again? I turned to face her. No, sweetheart. The judge said you get to stay with me. And Daddy… I chose my words carefully. Daddy is in trouble for what he did. He won't be able to bother us anymore. We settled back into our routine, but Emma was different. She became clingy, following me from room to room. She had nightmares about being taken away again. I found a child therapist, Dr. Rebecca Foster, who specialized in trauma. Slowly, session by session, Emma began to heal. 2 weeks after the hearing, I received a call from Detective Patricia Morales. Marcus had been arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, filing a false report, and custodial interference. The woman who had impersonated the CPS worker, a friend of a friend Marcus had paid $500, had been arrested as well and was cooperating with the investigation. She thought it was just a prank, Detective Morales explained. She had no idea about the legal ramifications. She's willing to testify against Mr. Thompson in exchange for a plea deal. The criminal case proceeded slowly through the system. Marcus was released on bail with strict conditions, including maintaining distance from Emma and me. But I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't simply accept defeat. My fears were confirmed a month later. I had installed a security system after everything that happened, and at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the alarm went off. I grabbed Emma and locked us in my bedroom, calling 911 as I heard footsteps downstairs. The police arrived within minutes. They found Marcus in our living room, drunk and carrying a baseball bat. He had broken in through the back door, ranting about getting his family back. As they arrested him, he screamed that I had destroyed his life, that everything was my fault. This time, bail was denied. The break-in, combined with violating the restraining order and his previous charges, meant Marcus would remain in custody until trial. He testified at his sentencing hearing 6 months later, describing the trauma he had inflicted on Emma and our family. Jessica testified too, detailing the psychological abuse her children had endured. She had found when it was Marcus, he was all prison for but we had Tyler, they played, and her with her night, the little sahos we could hear. Dr. Foster told me something that helped. She said predators like Marcus are experts at manipulation. They choose partners who are empathetic, who see the best in people. Our kindness wasn't a weakness he exploited. It was a strength that we've now learned to protect. Jessica nodded, tears in her eyes. My kids are happy now. They feel safe. That's what matters. Exactly. We can't change the past, but we're building a better future for them. As if on cue, the 3 children burst into the kitchen, demanding snacks. Emma climbed onto my lap, while Tyler and Sophia flanked Jessica. Looking at them, you would never guess the trauma they had endured. They were just kids being kids, secure in the knowledge that they were loved and protected. 2 years have passed since that morning when Marcus stood at my door with Emma's drawing. 2 years of healing, growth, and unexpected blessings. Emma is now 8, thriving in 3rd grade, and has developed a passion for science that amazes her teachers. She still sees Dr. Foster once a month, more as a check-in than intensive therapy. Tyler is 11 now, a gentle soul who watches out for his younger sister and stepsister with fierce protectiveness. Sophia, at 9, has blossomed into a budding artist, her drawings no longer dark and troubled, but full of light and joy. Jessica completed her nursing degree, something she had put on hold during her marriage to Marcus. She works at the Children's Hospital now, finding purpose in caring for others. We celebrate holidays together, our unconventional family bound not by blood or law, but by shared experience and mutual support. Linda, Jessica's mother, has become the grandmother figure Emma needed. She picks the kids up from school when Jessica and I are working, bakes cookies with them, and tells stories about her own childhood that make them laugh until their sides hurt. My sister Maggie remains close too, her role in protecting Emma during those dark days, forging an unbreakable bond. She jokes that she has 3 nieces now, including Tyler and Sophia in all her auntie adventures. The last I heard, Marcus was transferred to a facility 3 hours away. He has made no attempt to contact any of us, perhaps finally understanding that his control over us is broken forever. His parental rights to Emma were formally terminated last year, a legal formality that simply confirmed what we already knew: he was no longer her father in any meaningful way. Sometimes I think about the butterfly effect, how one decision can change the course of so many lives. If I hadn't called Marcus that Halloween night, if I hadn't invited his stepchildren to trick or treat with Emma, would things have turned out differently? Would his darkness have manifested in some other way? Dr. Mao Foster helped me understand that Marcus's actions weren't caused by my kindness to his stepchildren. His need for control, his narcissistic rage, his willingness to harm children to punish me, these were always within him. My act of kindness simply revealed what was already there. In a strange way, I'm grateful it happened when it did. If Marcus's true nature had remained hidden longer, if he had maintained his facade of normalcy, the damage could have been worse. By showing his hand so dramatically, he ensured his own downfall and our freedom. The children rarely mention him now. When they do, it's matter of fact, the way you might mention a storm that passed through years ago. He has become a footnote in their stories, not the main character he so desperately wanted to be. Last month, Emma brought home a school assignment about heroes. She wrote about me, but also about Aunt Maggie, who kept me safe when I was scared, and about Jessica and Tyler and Sophia, her chosen family who shows me that love is bigger than bad things. Her teacher sent it home with a note saying it was one of the most moving essays she had ever read from a 3rd grader. I framed it and hung it in our hallway, a reminder of how far we've come. As I write this, I can hear Emma in her room, video chatting with Tyler and Sophia about their plans for next weekend. They're debating between going to the zoo or the science museum. Their easy laughter fills our home with warmth. I've learned so much through this journey. I've learned that family isn't defined by traditional structures, but by love and commitment. I've learned that trauma can be overcome with support, therapy, and time. I've learned that sometimes the worst experiences can lead to the most unexpected blessings. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. The woman who once stayed in an unhappy marriage because she didn't think she could handle single parenthood faced down a narcissistic ex-husband, fought a corrupt system, and protected not just her own child, but others who needed help. Jessica and I sometimes joke about writing a book about our experience, a guide for women dealing with narcissistic ex-partners. For now, though, we're content to share our story with those who need to hear it, to let other women know that they're not alone, that there is life and even joy after escaping an abuser. The morning sun still filters through my bedroom curtains, casting those same gentle shadows across the photographs on my dresser. But the collection has grown now. Alongside old memories and new ones, pictures of Emma with Tyler and Sophia, images from our blended family celebrations, snapshots of healing and hope. That photo from my marriage to Marcus? I finally threw it away last year, not out of anger, but because it no longer served any purpose. I don't need reminders of who I used to be or what I survived. I'm too busy living the life we've built from the ashes of what he tried to destroy. Sometimes, when I'm tucking Emma into bed, she'll ask me to tell her a story. Not a fairy tale, but our story, the true one about how we found our chosen family. I tell her about the Halloween night that changed everything, about the brave little girl who went to stay with Aunt Maggie, about how sometimes bad things happen, but they can lead to beautiful outcomes. And they all lived happily ever after, she always asks at the end, even though she knows the answer. They all lived, I tell her, kissing her forehead, with love and laughter and the knowledge that they could face anything together. And that's even better than happily ever after. As I turn off her light and head to my own room, I think about Marcus, alone in his prison cell, consumed by the bitterness and rage that cost him everything. I don't feel sorry for him. His choices led him there. But I do feel grateful that his attempt to destroy us failed so spectacularly. He wanted to punish me for showing kindness to children. Instead, he brought together a group of people who might never have connected otherwise. He wanted to isolate and control us. Instead, he gave us the gift of freedom and the strength that comes from surviving trauma together. In the end, love won. Not the romantic love I once thought I had with Marcus, but something deeper and more enduring. The love of a mother. For her child, the love between chosen sisters, the love of children who bonded through adversity, the love of a grandmother who opened her heart to bonus grandchildren. This is our story, messy and painful and ultimately triumphant. It's a story I never expected to live, but one I wouldn't change because it led us to where we are so, safe, loved, together, and free to write whatever chapters come next, knowing we'll face them hand in hand, our unconventional, unbreakable family. The morning Marcus appeared at my door with Emma's drawing, I couldn't have imagined how that moment would look from 2 years in the future. I couldn't have known that his desperate attempt to reclaim control was actually the final proof of how completely he had lost it. That drawing, which he held like some talisman of the past, now hangs on our refrigerator again, surrounded by new artwork from all 3 children. It's a butterfly, bright and colourful, with Emma's careful 6-year-old printing underneath. Butterflies are free. Even then, even in the midst of trauma, she understood something fundamental about freedom and transformation. We were all caterpillars once, trapped in cocoons of fear and manipulation, but we emerged not unscarred, but undaunted, ready to spread our wings. And that's perhaps the most important lesson of all. Survival isn't just about making it through. It's about finding the strength to transform, to build something beautiful from the broken pieces, to choose love over fear every single day. We are living proof that butterflies, once free, can never be caged again. Looking back now, there are so many moments that shaped our journey, small instances that seemed insignificant at the time, but proved to be pivotal in our healing. I remember the first Christmas after everything happened. I was dreading it, worried about how Emma would handle the holidays without the traditional family structure she had once known. That morning, I woke to find Emma already up, sitting by our small tree with a thoughtful expression. "Mummy," she said when she saw me, "can we invite Tyler and Sophia and Miss Jessica for Christmas? And Grandma Linda, too?" That's what she had started calling Jessica's mother, adopting her as naturally as breathing. I called Jessica immediately, and she confessed she had been dreading the holiday too. We decided to combine our celebrations, creating new traditions that belonged to us alone. We spent Christmas Eve baking cookies together, 5 different kinds because each child had a favourite, and Linda insisted on adding her famous snickerdoodles to the mix. The kitchen was a disaster, flour covering every surface, frosting in the children's hair. But the laughter that filled the house was worth more than a clean kitchen could ever be. On Christmas morning, we all gathered in our pajamas, no pretense or formality. The children had made gifts for each other, simple crafts that carried more meaning than anything money could buy. Tyler had written and illustrated a book for Emma about a brave princess who saved herself. Sophia had painted portraits of their little group, capturing something essential in each face despite her young age. Emma had made friendship bracelets for everyone, spending hours getting the patterns just right. But it wasn't just the big moments that mattered. It was the quiet Tuesday afternoons when Jessica would stop by after a difficult shift at the hospital, and we'd sit at my kitchen table, sharing tea and understanding. It was the Saturday mornings when Linda would arrive early to make pancakes, telling stories about Jessica as a child that made us all laugh. It was Tyler's protective arm around Emma's shoulders when older kids at school teased her about not having a dad. I think about the day Emma came home from school with a family tree assignment. My heart sank when I saw it, remembering how such assignments had been painful reminders of our unconventional situation. But Emma approached it with her usual practical wisdom. "Mrs. Johnson says we can make our tree however we want," she announced. "So I'm putting you in the middle, Mummy, and then Aunt Maggie and Uncle Tom on one side, and Miss Jessica and Tyler and Sophia on the other side, and Grandma Linda at the top because she's the oldest." "What about your father?" I asked gently, prepared for tears or difficult questions. Emma considered this seriously. "I'll put a cloud there," she decided, "because he's not part of our tree anymore, but he helped make me, so he can be a cloud that rained on the tree once but doesn't anymore." Her teacher later told me it was the most creative and touching family tree she'd seen in 20 years of teaching. More importantly, it showed how Emma had integrated her story, acknowledging the past without being defined by it. The healing wasn't linear, of course. There were setbacks that reminded us how deep trauma can run. About 6 months after the trial, Tyler had a panic attack at school when a substitute teacher raised his voice. The school called Jessica, who called me, and we both rushed to pick him up. We found him in the nurse's office, curled into himself, trembling. Jessica held him while I talked to the administrator, explaining the situation without going into too much detail. They were understanding, noting it in Tyler's file so future substitutes would be aware. On the drive home, Tyler kept apologizing, embarrassed by his reaction. "Hey," I said, catching his eye in the rearview mirror. "You know what? Being scared doesn't make you weak. Asking for help when you're scared makes you brave. And you know who taught me that, Emma, when she was little and scared but still told me when she needed help?" Tyler managed a small smile. "Really? Really? We all get scared sometimes. The important thing is that we help each other through it." That evening, all 3 children had a long talk about feelings and triggers and how to support each other. They came up with a secret signal they could use at school if they were feeling overwhelmed, a simple hand gesture that meant, "I need a friend right now." Watching them problem solve together, turning their individual trauma into collective strength, filled me with such pride. Jessica and I had our own moments of reckoning too. There was a night, about a year after everything, when she called me crying. She had run into one of Marcus's old friends at the grocery store, someone who didn't know the full story, and made a comment about how Marcus was paying for her vindictiveness. "Am I vindictive?" she asked me through tears. Did I overreact? Should I have tried harder to make it work? I drove to her house immediately. We sat on her porch while the kids slept, and I reminded her of every reason she had left, every red flag she had responded to, every moment she had chosen her children's safety over a toxic relationship. You know what's vindictive? I said. Hiring a fake CPS worker to terrorize a child, breaking into someone's home with a weapon. What you did was protective. What we both did was necessary. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I just sometimes wonder if the kids blame me for taking their dad away. They might someday, I admitted. Kids are complicated. But when they're older and understand what really happened, they'll thank you. And even if they go through an angry phase, deep down they'll always know you chose them. That's what matters. We made a pact that night to never let anyone make us question our decisions again. We had lived through the gaslighting, the manipulation, the attempts to make us doubt our own perceptions. We wouldn't allow anyone, well-meaning or otherwise, to pull us back into that darkness. As the seasons changed, so did we. Spring brought new growth in every sense. Emma joined a soccer team, discovering she had a natural athleticism that surprised everyone, including herself. Watching her race down the field, ponytail flying, fierce determination on her face, I saw no trace of the frightened child who had clung to me after the fake CPS incident. Tyler found his passion in music, taking up the violin with an intensity that channeled his emotions into something beautiful. The first time he performed at a school concert, Jessica and I sat together, tears streaming down our faces as his clear notes filled the auditorium. Linda filmed everything, proud as any grandmother could be. Sophia blossomed in art therapy, her paintings evolving from dark, confined images to explosive colours and free-flowing designs. Her therapist arranged for her to display some pieces in a local children's art show. The night of the opening, she stood beside her paintings in a purple dress Linda had sewn for her, explaining her work to visitors with a confidence that seemed impossible given where she had started. Summer brought adventures we never could have imagined during the dark days. We took a camping trip together, all of us piled into 2 cars, heading to Rocky Mountain National Park. None of us were particularly outdoorsy, but the children had been learning about nature in school and begged to see the mountains up close. The first night, as we struggled to set up our tents, everything went wrong. The poles wouldn't fit together properly, Emma got tangled in the rainfly, Tyler accidentally let go of a stake that flew up and nearly hit Jessica in the face. By the time we finally had shelter erected, we were all laughing so hard we could barely stand. "This is a disaster," Jessica gasped between giggles. "The best kind of disaster," Linda corrected, emerging from her perfectly assembled tent with a satisfied smile. "The kind where no one gets hurt and everyone has a story." We made s'mores over a campfire, the children's faces sticky with marshmallow and chocolate. As darkness fell, we lay on blankets, looking up at stars invisible in the city. Tyler pointed out constellations he had learned about, while Sophia made up her own, finding butterflies and puppies in the scattered lights. Emma snuggled against me, her voice sleepy. "This is the best family vacation ever," she murmured. I caught Jessica's eye across the firelight. Family vacation. The words settled over us like a blessing. That's what we had become, slowly, carefully, authentically. A family. Fall arrived with new challenges. School meant new teachers who needed to understand our situation, new friends who asked innocent but difficult questions, new forms that required decisions about emergency contacts and pick-up authorizations. We had become experts at navigating bureaucracy, at explaining without over-explaining, at protecting our children's privacy while ensuring their safety. There was the day Emma's new teacher called, concerned because Emma had written a story about a girl with 2 mums, but not really, but kind of. I met with her after school, bringing Jessica for support. We explained our blended family structure, how we co-parented without being romantic partners, how the children were step-siblings without a marriage connecting them. The teacher, Mrs. Roberts, surprised us with her warmth. "I think it's beautiful," she said. "These kids are lucky to have so much love in their lives. Don't worry, I'll make sure Emma knows her family is just as valid as anyone else's." And she did. When the class did a unit on families around the world, she made sure to include all kinds of family structures, from single parents to grandparents, as guardians to chosen families like ours. Emma came home glowing, excited to share how her family fit perfectly into the lesson. Winter circled back again, but this time we were ready. We had traditions now, rhythms and rituals that belonged to us. Sunday dinners at Linda's house, where she taught all 3 children to cook her family recipes. Movie nights where we cycled through each person's choice, suffering through Tyler's obsession with documentaries and Sophia's love of musicals with good humour. Holiday shopping trips, where the children pooled their allowance to buy gifts for each other, spending hours debating the perfect present. One snowy afternoon, I was working from home when I heard a commotion in the backyard. Looking out, I saw all 3 children building what appeared to be an elaborate snow fortress. They worked with military precision, Tyler directing the construction while Emma and Sophia packed snow into walls. Jessica appeared beside me, coffee mug in hand. She had a key now, coming and going freely in my home as I did in hers. "They're planning to defend against the neighborhood kids' snowball attack," she explained. "Apparently there's going to be an epic battle later." We watched them work, their breath visible in the cold air, their cheeks red with exertion and excitement. "Remember when we couldn't even let them play together without drama?" I said. "Remember when we thought our lives were over?" Jessica countered. "When we couldn't see past the next crisis?" "And now? Now I can't imagine life any other way." The snowball battle was indeed epic. Neighborhood kids we had gotten to know over the past 2 years joined in, choosing sides, building fortifications. Parents gathered on porches, hot chocolate in hand, supervising from a distance. Our children, who had once been isolated and traumatized, were now the ringleaders of neighborhood fun. As spring approached again, marking 2 full years since that horrible CPS incident, I found myself reflecting on how fundamentally we had all changed. Not just healed, but transformed. Emma had gone from a lonely, frightened child to a confident, compassionate leader among her peers. Tyler had channeled his protective instincts into positive action, becoming a peer mediator at school. Sophia had found her voice through art, using her creativity to process and share her emotions. Jessica had not only completed her nursing degree but had specialized in pediatric trauma care, turning her personal experience into professional expertise. She was often called to consult on cases involving children from abusive homes, her combination of clinical knowledge and lived experience making her invaluable. Linda had embraced her role as grandmother to all 3 children with such enthusiasm that people often assumed she was biologically related to all of them. She had started volunteering at the school, becoming the beloved story grandma who read to classes every Wednesday. And me? I had learned that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about knowing when to ask for help, when to offer it, and when to simply stand witness to someone else's journey. I had started speaking at local domestic violence support groups, sharing our story with women who were where I had once been, scared and unsure if they could protect their children and themselves. One evening, after a particularly emotional support group session, I came home to find all 3 children doing homework at my kitchen table. Jessica was stirring something on the stove while Linda set the table for dinner. It was such a normal scene, so beautifully mundane, that I had to pause in the doorway to take it in. "Mummy!" Emma spotted me first. "Guess what? I got picked for the science fair finals." "Tyler made first chair violin," Sophia added, not to be outdone. "And Sophia's painting is going to be in the Children's Hospital permanent collection," Tyler finished, genuinely proud of his sister. As they all talked over each other, sharing the details of their days, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. Not from fear or anxiety anymore, but from an overwhelming sense of gratitude. This beautiful, chaotic, loving scene was what Marcus had tried to destroy. And he had failed so completely that his attempts had only made us stronger. That night, after dinner and homework and baths and bedtime stories, Jessica and I sat on my back porch despite the chill in the air. We did this sometimes, these quiet check-ins that had become as necessary as breathing. The detective called today, Jessica said quietly. Marcus is up for a parole hearing in 6 months. I had known this was coming, but hearing it out loud still sent a chill through me. He won't get it, I said with more confidence than I felt, not with his behavior reports. We had kept tabs through the victim notification system. Marcus had not been a model prisoner. Multiple infractions, fights with other inmates, refusal to participate in anger management programs. His narcissistic personality had not served him well in an environment where he had no power. Even if he did, Jessica continued, we're ready. The restraining orders are permanent. The kids are strong. We have support systems in place. She was right. We had contingency plans for various scenarios. Security systems at both houses. Code words the children knew to use if they ever felt unsafe. A network of friends and family who would rally around us if needed. But more than practical preparations, we had something Marcus could never understand or defeat. We had each other. We had love that wasn't possessive or controlling, but supportive and free. We had children who knew their worth wasn't determined by the approval of someone incapable of healthy love. We had built something unbreakable from the pieces he had tried to scatter. As if reading my thoughts, Jessica reached over and squeezed my hand. We're going to be okay, she said. Whatever happens, we're going to be okay. And sitting there in the darkness, surrounded by the quiet sounds of our neighborhood settling for the night, I knew she was right. We had survived the worst already. We had transformed trauma into triumph, isolation into community, fear into love. The next morning brought a new challenge, as mornings tend to do when you're raising children. Sophia had a meltdown about a book report due that she had forgotten about. Tyler couldn't find his violin sheet music. Emma decided she absolutely hated eggs after loving them for years. But we handled it as we handled everything now, together. Linda appeared, as if summoned by childhood crisis, violin music in hand from where Tyler had left it at her house. Jessica talked Sophia through her panic, helping her outline the report while I packed lunches. Emma negotiated for cereal instead of eggs, a reasonable compromise that would have once felt like defeat, but now just felt like picking battles wisely. As I drove the children to school, listening to them chatter about their plans for the day, I caught sight of myself in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me was older, certainly, with lines that spoke of stress survived and challenges overcome. But she was also someone I recognized and respected, someone who had faced her worst fears and emerged not unscathed, but undaunted. At drop-off, the children tumbled out of the car with the casual confidence of kids who know they are loved and protected. Emma remembered to grab her science project. Tyler double-checked that he had his now-found sheet music. Sophia hugged her hastily completed book report like a lifeline. "Love you, Mum," Emma called, using the title that had evolved naturally over time. Not Mummy anymore, she was growing up. "Love you, Aunt Sarah," Tyler and Sophia chorused, the aunt and honorific that meant more than any legal relationship could. I watched them disappear into the school building, 3 children who had found their way to each other through circumstances no child should have to endure. But they had endured, and more than that, they had thrived. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Coffee? Have an hour before my shift." "Always," I replied. We met at our usual spot, a small cafe equidistant from both our houses that had become our unofficial headquarters for debriefing and planning. The barista knew our orders by heart, starting them the moment we walked in. "So," Jessica said once we were settled with our drinks, "Linda wants to know if we're doing a joint birthday party for Emma and Sophia again this year. The girls' birthdays were only 2 weeks apart, and last year we had thrown one big celebration. It had been a beautiful chaos of children and cake and too many presents, exactly the kind of normal childhood memory we wanted them to have." "I think so," I said. Emma mentioned wanting a science theme. Maybe we can incorporate art for Sophia, STEAM instead of STEM. We fell into easy planning, the kind of conversation I never could have imagined having with Marcus's new wife 3 years ago. But that was the gift hidden in the trauma, these unexpected relationships that had become central to our lives. As we talked, I noticed a woman at a nearby table watching us with interest. She looked tired, worn down in a way I recognized. When Jessica stepped away to take a call from the hospital, the woman approached tentatively. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, "but I couldn't help overhearing. You're co-parenting with your ex's wife." I recognized the look in her eyes, the mixture of desperation and hope that I had once worn. "It's a bit more complicated than that," I said gently. "But yes, we're raising our kids together." "You going through something similar?" Her story spilled out in rushed whispers. An ex who used the children as pawns. A new wife who seemed kind but trapped. Custody battles and manipulation, and the exhausting work of protecting children from an adult's vindictiveness. I listened, remembering when I had been the one spilling my story to anyone who might understand. When Jessica returned, she took one look at the situation and sat down, adding her perspective. We didn't give legal advice or make promises, but we shared what had worked for us, the importance of documentation, the value of therapy, the power of building support systems. When the woman left, she looked a little less broken. "Thank you," she said. "Just knowing someone else survived this helps." After she'd gone, Jessica and I sat quietly for a moment. "We should do something more organized," Jessica said finally, "like a support group specifically for women dealing with narcissistic ex-partners who weaponize children." It was an idea we had discussed before but never acted on. Now, though, with 2 years of healing behind us and the strength that comes from surviving together, it felt possible. Necessary, even. "Let's talk to the Domestic Violence Centre," I suggested. "See if they have space for a monthly meeting." And just like that, another seed was planted. Another way to transform our pain into purpose. Another step in the journey that had begun with a fake CPS worker at my door and had somehow led to this moment, sitting with my chosen sister, planning ways to help other women find their way to safety and strength. That evening was one of Linda's Sunday dinners. The house smelled of roasting chicken and fresh bread, the comfortable chaos of children playing mixing with adult conversation. Maggie and her husband Tom had joined us, as they often did now, fully integrated into our extended family. As we gathered around Linda's dining table, I looked at each face illuminated by candlelight. Emma explaining her science fair project with animated gestures. Tyler quietly making sure everyone had what they needed before serving himself. Sophia arranging her food into patterns on her plate, finding art everywhere. Jessica laughing at something Linda said, more relaxed than I had ever seen her during our marriages to Marcus. Linda herself presiding over the meal with the satisfaction of a matriarch who had gathered her flock safely home. This was what Marcus had tried to prevent, this exact scene of love and laughter and belonging. He had failed so spectacularly that his cruelty had become the catalyst for something beautiful. We had not just survived him, we had transcended him entirely. After dinner, as we cleaned up together in Linda's kitchen, Emma appeared at my elbow. "Mum," she said, "I've been thinking about my science fair project." "Oh, what about it?" "Well, it's about how butterflies navigate during migration. And I was thinking about how our family is kind of like that. We all started in different places, but found our way to each other." I stopped washing dishes, struck by the profound truth in her 8-year-old observation. "That's a beautiful way to think about it, sweetheart." "Can I interview everyone for my project about their journey? I think it would make it more interesting." I caught Jessica's eye across the kitchen. She nodded, tears threatening. "I think that's a wonderful idea," I said. "But you'll have to ask everyone if they're comfortable sharing." Emma bounced off to gather permissions, her enthusiasm infectious. Within minutes, she had everyone agreeing to be interviewed, even shy Tyler, who usually avoided the spotlight. Watching her work, I thought about how different this scene was from her isolated childhood before. Then she had been a lonely little girl with an absent father and an exhausted mother. Now she was surrounded by people who loved her, supported her, and showed up for her consistently. She had learned that families could be created, not just born into, and that love multiplied when shared rather than diminished. The interviews became a project that absorbed all 3 children. They worked together, Emma asking questions, Tyler transcribing answers, Sophia illustrating key moments. The questions were sometimes painfully insightful. "Grandma Linda," Emma asked one afternoon, "were you scared when Aunt Jessica left my dad with Tyler and Sophia?" Linda considered carefully. "I was scared, but I was more proud. It takes courage to leave when someone is hurting you, even if leaving is scary too." "Tyler," Emma continued, "what made you feel safe again?" Tyler thought for a long moment. "When I realized you and Sophia and Aunt Sarah weren't going to disappear, when people kept showing up even when things were hard." The project evolved beyond a simple science fair entry. It became a family history, a testament to resilience and adaptation. When Emma presented it at the science fair, complete with Sophia's illustrations and metaphors connecting butterfly migration to human journeys of healing, there wasn't a dry eye among the parents watching. She won second place, which thrilled her. But more importantly, the project had given all of us a chance to reflect on how far we had come. The children had heard each other's perspectives, understanding their shared experience in new ways. And we adults had seen ourselves through their eyes, recognizing the strength they saw in us even when we had felt weak. That night, after all the excitement of the science fair, I found myself back on my porch despite the late hour. But this time, I wasn't alone. Emma had crept out of bed and joined me, wrapping herself in the blanket I kept on the porch swing. "Can't sleep?" I asked, pulling her close. "Just thinking," she said, "about butterflies and families and stuff." We swung gently, the spring night soft around us. "What kind of stuff?" "Do you think he thinks about us? My dad?" It wasn't the first time she had asked, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. "I don't know, sweetheart, maybe." "I hope he's learning to be better," she said, surprising me. "Not for us. We don't need him anymore, but for himself. It must be sad to be so angry all the time." Once again, my daughter's wisdom exceeded her years. "That's a very compassionate way to think about it," I said. "Sophia says her therapist told her that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal. It only burns you." She paused. "I don't want to hold any hot coals." "Then don't," I said simply. "You get to choose what you carry forward." She snuggled closer. "I choose this, our family, our house, our life, even if it's different from other families. Different can be beautiful," I reminded her. "Like butterflies," she agreed. "They're all different, but they all know how to fly home." As we sat there together, the night wrapped around us like a promise. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. There would be homework battles and sibling squabbles and the ongoing work of healing. There might be parole hearings to face and difficult conversations to navigate. But there would also be violin concerts and art shows and science fairs. There would be Sunday dinners and movie nights and camping trips where nothing went as planned but everything turned out perfectly anyway. There would be love in abundance, the kind that asks nothing but gives everything, the kind that creates families from fragments and builds homes from hope. Marcus had given us one gift through his cruelty. He had shown us exactly what love wasn't. And in learning that lesson, we had discovered what it was. Love was Jessica showing up at my door the day after a difficult shift because she sensed I needed support. Love was Linda teaching all 3 children her secret cookie recipe and pretending not to notice when they snuck extra chocolate chips. Love was Tyler reading to the younger girls when they had nightmares, his quiet voice chasing away the shadows. Love was Sophia painting a mural on my garage wall, transforming blank space into beauty. Love was Emma choosing compassion over bitterness, wisdom over wounds. Love was what we had built together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. And no amount of manipulation or malice could tear it down because we had built it ourselves, with our own hands and hearts, on a foundation of mutual respect and shared strength. The porch light attracted the first moths of spring, dancing in dizzy circles around the warm glow. Emma watched them with sleepy fascination. "They always fly toward the light," she observed. "Yes," I agreed. "They do." And so had we, I thought. Through the darkness Marcus had tried to impose, Through the fear and uncertainty and pain, we had always moved toward the light, toward love, toward each other, toward home. Emma's breathing had deepened, sleep finally claiming her. I carried her inside, marveling at how big she had gotten, how strong. In her room, I tucked her in among the stuffed animals and science books, the artwork from Sophia, and the music sheets Tyler had been teaching her to read. Before I left, I looked around the room that had once been a shrine to loneliness, one child playing alone among too many toys. Now it was command central for 3 children who moved between houses, with the easy confidence of belonging everywhere. Sleeping bags were permanently stacked in the corner for impromptu sleepovers. Art supplies and music books and science experiments covered every surface. It was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. In the hallway, I paused at the photo wall we had created together. There was this year's school pictures, 3 children grinning at the camera with genuine joy. There were birthday parties and holiday celebrations, camping disasters and science fair triumphs. There were quiet moments caught in time, Tyler helping Emma with homework, Sophia painting Linda's portrait, Jessica and me laughing over coffee. And in the centre, Emma's butterfly drawing, the one from her science project. She had painted our family as different species of butterflies, each unique but flying in the same direction. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, families are like butterflies. They transform, they migrate, they find their way home. Standing there in my hallway at midnight, surrounded by evidence of the life we had built, I felt a profound sense of completion. Not ending, but wholeness. We had taken the shattered pieces Marcus had left behind and created a mosaic more beautiful than anything that had come before. Somewhere out there, Marcus sat in a cell, nursing his grievances and planning his appeals. But he had become irrelevant to our story. We had written him out through the simple act of living well, loving freely, and choosing joy over bitterness every single day. I thought about the woman from the cafe just beginning her journey toward freedom. I thought about the support group Jessica and I would start, the women we would walk beside as they found their own strength. I thought about the butterflies Emma had taught us about, how they looked fragile but could fly thousands of miles, navigating by mysterious instincts toward warmth and safety and home. We were those butterflies, all of us. We had emerged from our cocoons transformed. We had found our way to each other across impossible distances. And now we flew together, a kaleidoscope of different colors and patterns, but unified in our direction. Forward, always forward, toward the light. As I finally made my way to my own bed, my phone lit up with a group text. Jessica sending a photo from her night shift. She had snapped a picture of the children's artwork displayed in the pediatric ward, Sophia's paintings bringing colour to sterile walls. "Look what's brightening everyone's night," she had written. "So proud of our girl, our children, our family." I smiled, adding the photo to my mental collection of moments that proved love wins. Because that's what this whole journey had taught me. Love wins when it's patient and protective rather than possessive and punitive. Love wins when it puts children's well-being above adult egos. Love wins when it builds bridges instead of walls. And love had won so completely in our lives that Marcus's cruelty had become nothing more than compost from which something beautiful grew. We were the garden that flourished in spite of the poison he had tried to spread. We were the butterflies that emerged from cocoons of fear to dance in the sunlight of freedom. Most of all, we were exactly where we were meant to be. Home. Together. Free. A family forged in fire but defined by love, proving every day that the best revenge against someone who tried to break you is to build something unbreakable. And as sleep finally claimed me, I knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges and more triumphs, more tears and more laughter, more proof that we had not just survived, but thrived. Because that's what butterflies do. They spread their wings and fly, carrying beauty wherever they go, transforming the world simply by being free. Our transformation was complete. Our migration had led us home. And our story, still being written with each new day, was one of hope and healing and the irrepressible human capacity to turn trauma into triumph, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of love at a time.